everybody? You are tuned in to the Jersey Comic Crew, the best place to get all the news and reviews of your favorite comics, movies, and TV shows. And as always, I'm Chris Helen. With me is from far, far away,
Rob Moran. What's up, guys? Yes, I'm still the same Rob Moran. My face might look a little different, but I'm
ruined
still
such
here.
a beautiful, long growing. Your wizardry is over, sir.
I'm back to a Padawan.
Your Merlin training has gone downhill quick.
I went back to the Sorcerer's Apprentice instead of the Sorcerer.
Rob was he was going to be Yen Sid in the young Yen Sid Kingdom Hearts movie, Coming to You Never.
Yeah.
And he quit. He walked off set.
I quit, walked off the set. I shaved. They didn't want the long beard anymore. So, no. Truth is, I messed up grooming myself, and I had to do that.
It's the worst, right?
But today, guys, we got a great episode for you. We have chock full of information of the Sony conference. We know that's why you're listening right now. But before that, we want to pay a special tribute to comic book icon, comic book legend, Denny O'Neil, who passed away at the age of 81 recently.
Yeah.
And we wanted to take some time to talk about the impact that he has brought to the comic book culture. And any significant impact that he brought onto us. I want to start because I know you're going to have bigger things to say, especially with those books right behind you.
Woohoo!
So
my head blocks out the main. Looks like Superman's coming out my ear.
Yeah. He's like, woo!
He's like, get me out of his head!
So, Denny O'Neil, most notably known for, Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. He's done a lot of Marvel books. He was somebody that wasn't afraid to take risk and change. The way I started to know Denny O'Neil was like from these iconic covers, like you see right behind Chris. I was like, oh, these covers are cool. All right, what are the stories behind them? And the one in the middle, right behind Chris, is a Green Arrow, Green Lantern book. Now that's where I really got my knowledge of Denny O'Neil and why he's an important person for me. He was one of the first to tackle the drug issue that plagues America in comic books. So, in that Green Arrow, Green Lantern crossover comics, we see Green Arrow find Speedy, his sidekick, using drugs. Like, you see that playing on the cover. There's another issue of them dealing with it. For me, I found that to be very powerful and impactful. Before I even started reading comics, I knew those covers. And I knew comics were significant because they weren't afraid to talk about the bad parts of society, right? Like comics, just like any other medium, are a reflection of our society. And Denny O'Neil, being the tough Irishman that he wasn't afraid to do that. So that's something that we need to keep looking forward to in comic writers and artists today. And, we talk about all kinds of issues from social injustices to economical situations and drug use. And that's probably one of the biggest examples of reflecting society. So, Chris, obviously you have some of his beautiful pieces with you. I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, man. Very, very big day, with him passing away. Legend, especially in DC, right?
Yes.
He did some Daredevil. He did a bunch of books over at Marvel, but DC is kind of the hub of where like Denny O'Neil runs throughout those halls, and him and Neil Adams, who drew all these covers in that like 70s, late 60s, 70s era. These are just some of them. Some of the main ones, bringing the Joker back the way he did. The Joker we know today is because of Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, the hardcore, dark, gritty Joker. Kind of prior to that cover right there, that's Joker's Five-Way Revenge.
He was kind of like just a silly guy, right?
Yeah, like how they portrayed him in Batman 66, campy. He was just another Batman villain. He wasn't the Joker. And this is kind of what solidified him. Superman, at a time where everyone was basically afraid to write Superman, post-war, and during Vietnam and all this stuff, they kind of came out with this amazing stuff. He also wrote Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
Mm-hmm. That's a cool
those
book.
Huge treasury editions. Excuse me. And of course, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. If you think Denny O'Neil, that's the book you think of, like Rob was saying, right? Whether it's Speedy doing heroin on the cover, this cover, which has a huge social justice in it, and that's really what I think of Denny O'Neil. And Neil Adams in a way. Even Denny even though I met Denny O'Neil 50 times. These books are all signed by both of them.
Awesome.
Nicest guy on the planet. Like the nicest guy on the planet to anybody. Neil Adams is a little tougher to get along with. Sometimes when you see him. Also a lot more expensive. If you're a comic fan and you've been to Comic Cons, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when I think of Denny O'Neil, I think of a pioneer for change in his world. And if you see anything going on today, which obviously we're not going to get too far deep into because we're trying to give you guys as well as us an escape from it.
Yes.
But Denny O'Neil co-created John Stewart, the first Black Green Lantern. Who?
Yeah, I
for
forgot
me and
about
Rob,
that.
that's our Green Lantern, right? Like
Yeah.
we grew up with John Stewart in the animated series.
He was the wisecracking army guy that got all the babes. We were like, yeah, John Stewart was
everybody.
The man.
Everybody. I would love to see him, like him and Matt Murdock in a bar, just picking up chicks. Like it's just an awful side issue. Like who gets more chicks?
The crossover, Marvel vs DC, and they break off to go get chicks.
Go get chicks. Him and Matt Murdock. But yeah, just a pioneer for talking about issues that people get very afraid to talk about, or they throw other agendas in trying to talk about something because it's either too difficult to talk about or they don't care. I grew up on a system of hard conversations equals an easier life, and easy conversations equal a hard life. And the basis of that is for everything, right? If you have the hard conversations, no matter what they are, and you talk about hard things, your life will eventually get easier because you're dealing with it instead of putting it off. The old saying, kicking the can down the road, it's the same thing. If you just have easy conversations in your life and don't really care about anything or talk about anything important, your life's going to probably suck because you're avoiding a lot of it. So, Denny O'Neil was someone who took comic books at a time where, the Comic Code Authority was there all the time watching.
Yes.
The evil eye overlord of registering comics and making sure they fit an agenda based on the Supreme Court saying that it related to juvenile delinquency, a lot what we're dealing with.
Make sure
video games today.
These books don't influence the minds of our youth.
Yes.
And make them do terrible things. And Danny was like, all right, but it's important to know that these things are real and you can't hide from them. Like Chris was saying, they're hard conversations. Like, if you keep sugarcoating everything, you might not know what to do when that situation arises to you.
Yeah. And also seeing that stuff, right? Like, if you're a black kid in the 70s and you have basically Black Panther who's like, hey, awesome character, but he's in Africa.
Yep.
I live in New York, and it's a lot different here, right? And the Falcon's kind of traveling around with Captain America. It's not really one place. It's not really a Falcon.
And he's really not that big of a character at that point.
Not that big of a character at the moment. And then you see this Black Green Lantern holding Hal Jordan down with a glowing ring and looks like crazy big and strong. And it's not like a Luke Cage, like, I love Luke Cage, but it's very campy, like, Yo Diggity style.
Yeah,
sometimes in the early ones.
Definitely made with certain stereotypes in mind, we'll say. Yeah.
So, like, John Stewart, who's a military man, and who is ex-military, and is a black man in America dealing with those things. For those guys to do that at that time it's completely insane if you think about it.
Yeah, when you think about it, do I think in the 70s a white male comic book writer would take the risk of creating a black character? I would say, no, I don't think they would do it. No, I think they would avoid it. But Danny's like, no, this needs to be portrayed because these people need to have a voice in a medium where their voice isn't heard or isn't heard as loudly or isn't presented however you want to word it to make yourself feel better. Their voice wasn't there.
Exactly, 100%, Rob. You nailed it on the head. And
I practiced that speech this morning.
In the mirror. And then he said...
And then he punched Hitler in the face. No.
Captain America did, though.
I know.
So, and I would say the main point of obviously remembering Denny O'Neil, and, I think the first time I saw him was not even at Comic-Con. It was a signing at JHU Comics.
Oh, in New York.
In New York. He did a signing there on, a Wednesday on a comic book day, and I remember, leaving work, hopping on the train. I had 6 or 7 books with me, and he did everything for basically free.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome. He was just there for the fans and there for the comics. And really the essence, if you didn't know Denny O'Neil, you haven't really read his work. him and Neil Adams, and Neil deserves just as much credit as
Yes.
Denny O'Neil does for the drawings and everything, because when you look at it, you see the Neil Adams images. But Denny O'Neil is a pioneer in not only what we talked about, the drug stuff, talking about societal issues, which the same stuff is going on now that went back then.
Yep.
So when he's talking about this stuff back then, and forcing other comic writers to pay attention and forcing an industry to pay attention, that creates not only just better content and realizing like, oh, they do realize what's going on in the world, but also better stories, right?
Yes.
Like, I have a Shazam #1 that Denny O'Neil wrote that's CGC'd, and those stories are still good now. And I would say this is the Green Lantern's probably my favorite, like Rob's. That and the Batman one. But that Green Lantern book is so, the reason he's shooting an arrow through a Green Lantern's lantern is because it was the same thing that's kind of going on today. Green Lantern was a space cop. He comes back to Earth after a while, is kind of, doesn't really know what's really going on in society, and is just, quote unquote, doing his job. He arrests a guy for stealing food from a mart or something, or someone taking money or something like that, and puts him to jail. And Green Arrow's like, what are you doing, man? Like, you just put that guy in jail for some petty crime, and now he's not going to be able to help his grandmother pay rent, and she's going to be out in the street in a month. Like, that stuff no one talked about in the 70s, and not a lot of people talk about now. So yeah, just an amazing human being. And Rob's met him. I've met him a bunch of times at Comic-Cons and signings. Just a great pioneer that your Scott Snyders and your Brian Michael Bendis's and Tom King's all have looked up to that guy and were like, okay, that's the benchmark of writing. This is what you want to write.
The impact is. I need to make an impact as best as I can, just like him. And I did meet him. He's a great guy, but I met him very early on in my hardcore comic book collecting, and unfortunately, I didn't have anything for him to sign, and I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt. But just meeting him was enough for me. So,
great dude, and he will be missed and never forgotten, especially on my books because he wrote on them.
So we want to hear from you guys. If you've ever met Denny O'Neil or know somebody who has, leave us a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening. Let us know. Hit us up on our social media. If you've had any memories or conversations with him, or if you just like his covers and like, yeah, I really like this cover, or I have this book. We want to hear that too because, somebody's passing should be a celebration of their life. Not being upset that they're no longer here.